We've taken two sessions to take a look at Matthew chapter 24, and the discussion that you find from the words of Jesus actually is prompted by a statement he makes in verse 2. The disciples are enamored with the construction project of the temple and how beautiful it's becoming, and Jesus says in verse 2 of Matthew 24, there will be a time when not one stone is left on another. They're devastated. Verse 3, they ask Jesus, when will those things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age, as though all those things happen simultaneously. Jesus answers two questions. He starts that answer to the destruction of Jerusalem in verse 4 and does not conclude it until he gets to verse 35. There are certain things that are indications of the destruction of the temple getting close, certain things that really should not trouble them because those are going to happen anyway. But ultimately, down in verse 15, he tells them, when you see the abomination of desolation stand in the holy place, the way that Luke records this event, Luke says, Jesus said, when you see the armies encompass the city of Jerusalem, know that its devastation is nigh. And then the same phrase follows that in both Matthew and in Luke. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. When you see the army encircle Jerusalem, when that is beginning to happen, you've got to leave. So there are certain signs that are indications of the destruction of the temple. And what about the rest of what they ask? What will be the sign of your coming into the end of the age? Beginning in verse 36, Jesus answers that question. What Jesus does not give are indications of when. In fact, he says repeatedly, you don't know. It's something that will be a surprise. It's something that will be totally unexpected. You need to be ready because you do not know the day or the hour when that's going to actually happen. Now, that's totally different than what a lot of individuals are saying today. I think I'm going to trust what Jesus says. Chapter 25 is a continuation of this second answer. It's not as though Jesus finishes answering that question at the end of Matthew chapter 24 and then goes to a different subject. Matthew chapter 25 begins this way. Then the kingdom of heaven, well, what do you mean then? He's been talking about that second coming. Then the kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. The New Revised Standard says 10 bridesmaids, which really kind of gives us a better picture of the event that's taking place. 5 of them were wise, 5 were foolish. Those who were foolish took their lamps, didn't take any extra oil. And the lamps that are utilized in those kind of processions were not huge, so there's a limit to how long those lamps will burn. The wise took oil in their lamps, but they also took extra oil with them. And then in verse number 5, while the bridegroom was delayed, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight a cry was heard, behold, the bridegroom is coming, go out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. The wise answered, saying, no, lest there should not be enough for us and you, but go rather to those who sell and buy for yourselves. At midnight, they're probably not going to find anybody in the marketplace selling oil. But they go anyway. Whatever time it takes, they finally come back. And while they're gone, verse 10, while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding, and the door was shut. When the other 5 finally returned, they knocked on the door, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, I don't know who you are. Verse 13, here's the point. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour in which the Son of Man is coming. It's really close to what Jesus said back in verse 42 of chapter 24. Watch therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord is coming. He's making the same point. So if you take any kind of application from the lesson of this particular parable, what's the lesson? Attentiveness. I've got to be attentive to details. I've got to be attentive to possibilities. Those who are foolish don't. They're not preparing for any kind of delay at all. They think everything's going to happen on whatever schedule that they have determined, rather than understanding that they're not in charge of the bridegroom's time. He is. And those who are wise, recognizing that, being attentive to that kind of possibility, take some extra oil with them so that they won't run out. Being attentive to details and possibilities, because you do not know when the bridegroom comes. Now, the second event, or the second setting in this chapter, chapter 25, is another parable. Begins in verse 14, goes all the way down through verse number 30. It's about an individual who leaves on a journey and gives his servants a certain amount of money while he goes, while he's away. And the statement is made that he gives to each one according to their ability. He's giving them what they can handle. So to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, according to their ability, and he goes on a journey. And the statement's made down in verse 19, after a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. What's happened in the meantime? The one that has been given 5 talents actually goes out and doubles it. The person that's been given 2 talents doubles his as well. The person with 1 talent doesn't want to lose what he has, so he buries it. And when the master comes back, he's extremely pleased with the one who he gave 5 talents and the one to whom he gave 2 talents. The one to whom he gave 1 comes back with almost an embarrassed kind of demeanor. Says, I was afraid. I was afraid, and I hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours, verse 25. And the reason I was afraid, because sometimes you can be kind of harsh. And the master said, you should have understood that, but you also should have understood what I really expected. This individual that had to receive that 1 talent, that wasted it, that wasted any kind of opportunity to double it, that 1 talent's removed and he's cast out. In fact, the way that it's described, take the talent from him, verse 28 and following, and give it to him who has 10 talents, for to everyone who has, more will be given. He will have abundance, but from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. Cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The first parable of those bridesmaids dealt with being attentive to detail, to possibilities, being prepared. In this second one, it's action connected with responsibility. What do I need to be doing? I can't just be sitting around doing nothing. How do I prepare? What does the master want me to accomplish? What can be accomplished? How do I work for the benefit of the one who gave me these talents? The last one really is an illustration of what happens at that day of judgment. Verse 31 and following. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the holy angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory, and all the nations will be gathered to him, and he will separate them one from another as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. He'll set the sheep on his right hand, the goats on the left. Right hand, place of honor. And he tells them, he welcomes them, he talks about what they have done. He said, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world, for I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was a stranger, you took me in. I didn't have any clothes, you clothed me. I was sick, you visited me. I was in prison, you came to me. And they're saying, when did we ever see you in those kind of conditions? I mean, we did that for others, but we never saw you in those conditions. Jesus says, in the fact that you did it to the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me, verse 40. Attitude. It's an attitude of selflessness. It's an attitude of service. It's an attitude of benevolence. It's an attitude of compassion. It's an attitude which puts self last on the list. You can think about others before you think about yourself. And then to those on the left hand, those who are classified as the goats, Jesus says, depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels, for I was hungry. And goes through all this whole list. Hungry, you didn't feed me. I was thirsty, you didn't give me a drink. I needed clothes, you didn't provide clothes for me. I was in prison, you never came and visited to me. I was sick, you didn't do anything for me. And they said, Lord, if we'd ever seen you in that condition, we would have done a lot. No, you didn't do it to the least of these, my brethren. You didn't do it to me. There's a selfishness involved. It's an attitude of a calloused heart. It's an attitude of greed for oneself. It's an attitude where if it doesn't benefit me and I don't see some kind of immediate returns, I'm not going to be involved in doing that at all. And these individuals are cast out. So you start thinking of these three different sections in chapter 25, and what do you have? You have that attentiveness, be prepared. You have that action, be responsible. In this third place, you have that attitude, serve others, not yourself. The statement that is made in that first section about the bridesmaids is something that holds true in the rest of these. You don't know what hour, you don't know the time, you don't know the day that the bridegroom comes. Just like with the parable of the talents, you don't know when the master is going to return from his journey. Or this last segment, you don't know at what time the Lord is going to divide the nations as a shepherd divides sheep from goats. The impact of the answer to this second question, what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? No indications, no signs. Be ready. It'll be unexpected. Don't let that surprise catch you off guard. Be faithful every single day. Please stay safe. We'll talk again soon.